How you doing, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, whichever it may be. Today, as you can see, I'm having a look at the Sideshow Collectibles Pagetti Rook from their Scum and Villainy collection, and this is the second figure in their phase 2 of the Scum and Villainy. And as you can see on the front of the box, we have an image of the figure itself with his Vibro Ax in his hand. On the side, not much, and in typical Sideshow Scum and Villainy collection fashion, we have an image of the figure on the left hand side, a small monologue about the character of Pagetti Rook, and then at the bottom we have a picture of all of the phase 2 figures from the Scum and Villainy collection. So there we have it for the box, just a quick look at it, nothing too exciting. So moving on, let's have a quick pan of the figure, and please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So here we are for a quick pan of Pagetti Rook before we get into the details and the accessories. And Pagetti Rook was a weak key or weak Y, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, from the planet Shrulur, a desert planet in the Outer Rim territories, and he was one of 5 guards assigned to escort prisoners on the Bantha-II cargo skiff for Jabba the Hutt. And Rook was ordered to throw Luke Skywalker into the Great Pit of Carkoon, where Skywalker, Han Solo and Chewbacca were to be fed to the Sarlacc. Rook forced Skywalker onto the gangplank using his BD-1 cutter Vibro Ax, but as most of you know, things didn't work out that well for Pagetti Rook, and he ended up being struck down by Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and falls into the pit himself. There's not a whole lot of lore about Pagetti Rook. This is stuff that I've picked up from Wikipedia and bits and pieces. Again, from the planet Shrulur, probably butchering that name, a desert planet, and that explains his tough leathery like skin, which helps the weak Y or the weak key to endure the intense heat and the harsh conditions of the desert planet. So as I said, not a whole heap about Pagetti Rook. That's pretty much it for the lore around him. So moving on, let's get into the accessories. And here we are for the accessories that come with Pagetti Rook. And in typical Sideshow Scum and Villainy fashion, there isn't a whole lot, very, very minimal. 4 hands and his BD-1 cutting Vibro Ax. These 2 hands here are identical to each other, although the one on the right seems to be slightly darker than the one on the left. But they are identical hands. They're no different to each other, they're just opposite clones of each other. And the same for these relaxed palms too. They're identical hands, just reverse copies, not a whole lot of imagination. Painted fine, there's texture to the molds, and you know, there's highlighted areas. No real complaints about the paint apps, to be honest, and how they're textured. You see there on the palm of them there, he's got the grubby fingernails, he's got a nice little texture to the palm, and the tips of the hands are lighter colour. Just not a whole lot of imagination in the gesturing of them. They're just clones of each other, reverse copies of each other. And then we have his BD-1 Vibro Ax, or his Vibro cutter. And anybody who has the Lando Calrissian skiff guard version from Sideshow knows that this is an absolute reuse. This isn't original. This is a a reuse, and it is virtually identical. I can't see any differences, in it. Even the paint apps are all almost identical, down to the speckling on the bladed part, and on the end of it having this little silver worn effect to it, being just identical to the skiff guard Lando Calrissian. And I believe the Cathaba figure is coming with the same Vibro Ax as well. Now, one thing I want to note as well is the hands here. Trying to get the hands wrapped around this Vibro Ax was virtually impossible. Just absolutely impossible to do. The hands are too close. I had to immerse both of these hands in hot water to soften them up, to get them into the pose that you just seen a few seconds ago on the pan of the figure. I had to heat them up, soften them up, so I could kind of pry them open to get them onto the Vibro Ax, which not ideal. It's if you don't soften up the hands to do that, you're going to take the paint off the fingers. So there we are for the accessories that come with Pagetti Rook. Not much. So here we have Pagetti Rook standing pretty much straight up as he comes out of the box, and starting from bottom to top, we'll work our way up and we'll go through the details. Wearing a fully plastic molded boot. Now it is a split design, very tight on him, the top part, but you can see there is a split part for articulation. It doesn't allow for a whole heap of articulation, but there's a bit there, and more than there would be if it was one whole boot. But it's done okay. I've no issues with it. With all the rippling effect on it, it sits over the split very well and kind of hides it, and it's not egregious. It's not terrible. I've seen worse. Now the lower part of the boot looks to me to be identical to the previous Scum and Villainy figures, or some of them anyway. Like Dr. Cornelius Evazan, Ponda Baba, and Garandan, I believe, all have the same lower part of the boot. It's this top part here that's a new mold or a new design specifically for Pagetti Rook. So not a whole heap of detailing in them. There is a bit of speckling on the heel of them there, just speckled onto the heel. There's a little bit of weathering on the sole of them there as well, which I'm quite pleased to see, strangely enough. They're not, terrible detail. The mold is a little bit bland, but the paint applications are nice. There's a little bit of light dry brushing over the tips of them to make them look like he's been walking in sand, a bit of sand kind of effects to them. Not too bad. As for the trousers he's wearing, they feel like a linen, and they look like a linen. They're supposed to be a linen kind of look to them. They're very light material, but they look the part. There's no complaints. The stitching is quite well. They bunch up a little bit, which I'd have to look back at the movie to see if the bunching up is accurate. I'd assume it is, but as you can see there is a bit of weathering on them as well, which I'm quite pleased to see. We have some weathering on the right knee here, and a little bit weathering up on the thigh there on the left leg. Nothing on the back, no weathering on the back. Still, it's still nice to see a little bit of weathering, at least on the front of them. There could be a little bit more. You could do with a little bit more weathering, but what we have is okay. No pockets in them, just a plain linen pair of trousers on them. Very light material, and they're light enough that they sit okay. They sit fine. They're not rigid. They sit okay. Like I said, the bunching up, I'm not sure of. I'm pretty sure it's accurate, but I just have to look back again at the scene in the movie to see how accurate the bagginess on the trousers is. And just moving up, we have some dust on the front of them there. Let me just try and give that a brush to try and get that dust off. There's dust out here, and it doesn't want to move from that material. There we go. So looking at the torso area, or the body area of him, looking at his belt there, he has bronze buckle on him there, and it's done okay. There's a little bit of weathering on it, there's a nice bit of detail to it. It is a pleather belt. It feels like a pleather belt, unfortunately. Like I've said before, I wish these companies would just move away from this pleather. What would it cost to make that belt out of real leather? It's not a whole lot of material. Very nice looking pouches attached to them here. Nice detail into them, nice molds. They look like a material. They've got little folds in them, and the paintwork, the darker paintwork in the folds. These little studs on them as the fasteners, and we've a couple of smaller ones on this side here, and they do look the part. I'm not upset with them. I think they look fine. The mold on them is fine, and the paint applications are fine, and they sit in place quite well. And then we've this little loop part here. I'm not too sure what that's all about. No blaster holster, which is kind of unusual for a Star Wars figure. I don't think I have any other Star Wars figures without a blaster holster. I'm not sure, but it is rare to see a Star Wars figure without a blaster holster, but there you go. And then we have this garment here, or I don't. It's not really armor. It's, you know, it's a suede or a faux suede with nice rippling effects in it, just like it had in the movie. A nice feel to the material too. It feels decent enough. It feels quite nice. It's not, doesn't feel like poor quality, and because it's a faux suede and not a pleather, I can't see it deteriorating. The only part of this figure that I'm looking at so far is the belt. The belt maybe is going to be what deteriorates over time, but I can't see this part of the outfit deteriorating over time because it's a faux suede. Just bring that light up just so we can see that a little bit better. It looks the part, it looks accurate. You can see the straps running down under his arms and the rippling effect. And it has these studs in it here that match the studs on his utility belt or on his pouches, which is not something I'd have picked up on before getting the figure. For the short period of time that he's on screen, it's not something I would have picked up on, but these little studs here, they do match what's on his pouches, which is a nice little touch. Shoulder pads there are the same material, the faux suede, and completely look the part. Now his wrist gauntlets are something I've just noticed as well. This part here is a plastic, it's a hard plastic, so not an issue for degradation or deteriorating. When I first seen them out of the box, I thought they were pleather, but they're not. They're actually a molded plastic, which is a nice touch, and there's a little bit of detail in them there, these little, you know, holes in them there that are painted black. Little bit of detail in them there, but unfortunately a little bit more pleather. The straps on them are made out of pleather, which is probably going to be an issue in the future. Hopefully not. We'll just have to see, only time will tell, but we do have these pleather straps. Easily replaced with real leather if they do deteriorate. It's more the belt that might end up being an issue. And then around the back, as you can see there, just moving his hair out of the way there. We'll get into the detail on that in a few minutes. More of this rippling effect around the back. And on the back of the shoulders as well, you can see it's like a darker tone to it, where it looks like a bit of weathering. It looks, you know, it's up on the shoulders where there would be some, you know, some high traffic areas, I suppose, around the edges of the shoulders. Also, there's a little bit of that darker, weathered look to the outfit. Absolutely looks the part. And then we have this very light blue, very, very pastel-y, pale blue. Again, supposed to look like linen long sleeve top that he has on, and it's a bit rigid. It's like it's coated in something. Now I do see, I'm sure the camera's picking up on it there. There is some yellowing around the cuff areas, like a little bit of weathering and a little bit of weathering up here. And I think that's what's making it that little bit rigid is that little bit of paint that's on it for the weathering. But it is quite a rigid piece. It's not too bad, but you can see under the arms there as well is weathered, like it's maybe to replicate some sweat on him, you know. So, you know, not terrible. It's not fantastic, but it's not terrible, you know. And I do like to see the little bit of weathering on the figures. So there we have it for the figure itself and the body and the outfit. So what I'll do now is I'll get a little bit more focused in on this head sculpt, and we'll go through the details on the head sculpt. And here we have the Pagetti Rook head sculpt, and as per usual with Sideshow's alien head sculpts, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It looks the part. It looks just like Pagetti Rook did in the movie. And the first thing I'm going to point out though is, if I can get the camera to focus in on that, just shine a bit of light on it there, the neck. As you can see there, it's got that scar on it. They've reused the Clint Eastwood William Money body, or the 1990 Tim Curry It body with that scar across the neck. They used it on Dr. Cornelius Evazan as well, if I'm not mistaken. So it is that same body they've used again. They've used this body many, many times now at this stage, and this figure is no exception. As for the details are there. It's quite impressive with the texture to him, and it does look like a tough, leathery skin, you know, with the combination of the mold and the paintwork on it does make it look like, you know, Pagetti Rook did look with that tough skin. It has high points and low points in it around the cheekbones. It has this exaggerated brow over the eyes, and he has this very, very small, almost very difficult to see brown eyes on the brown skin. Very squinted, very small eyes on him, but they look the part. And he has a bit of a grim look on his face. He looks very grim, like he means business. He's not taking it he's not taking any crap, this guy. You can see the separation of the lips there and the jawline, all very uneven, very tough looking, very well textured, and very well painted to look like a leathery skin, as I said. And even the tone differences in it, when the light catches it, you can see these purple hues in it, and these kind of deep greys and dark browns contrasting with the lighter browns. Look really good. Absolutely fantastic looking, as usual with their alien figures. As I said, really impressed with it, and really impressed with the paintwork. Looking at that side of the head there compared to that side there, it's not fully symmetrical. There are subtle kind of differences. They look kind of different, where there's different kind of lumps and texturing on each side. You know, this side here is quite different. Some bits look more pronounced than other bits on the other. You can see from the side profile there how pronounced his eyebrows are there, and his flat nose, and the oval shape to his head as well. I probably have to look back at the movie to really appreciate how accurate this is, because I don't remember his head being so oval, but I'm sure it's right. I mean, it looks the part. You can see his little kind of ears. As you can see, they're tiny little ears on him. And even all the texture and the lines running all the way through the sculpt. And on the top he has these little lumps and bumps and unevenness to him. I don't think there's a fully even or symmetrical part to the whole figure. And as for these hair braids or bits at the back here, they are not, I kind of have to pull them down there, because I did have the sculpt off recently, so I think I've just caught it up. Not something I've looked at closely on in the movie, on the guy in the movie, but I'd assume Sideshow have it correct in the sense that we have 3 of them braided or plaited, and 3 of them that are just, you know, just sitting free. And it is a synthetic nylon hair. I'm just going to pull it back a bit so you can see a bit more of the length of that. They go down right down his back, right down just around the belt area, just below the belt area. And the braided parts, just having a look at the braided parts, they do have these little bits here at the end that kind of tie it all off. And there's, you know, there's a little bit of detail in them as well, as you can see there, with that, the blue and the red running through, and this one has kind of a yellow and an orange on it. So there are different details there, you know. So it's a nice little touch, you know, different ends or tie-offs of the braids. And then we have these 3 here that aren't braided, they're just loose hairs, again, nylon synthetic hair, which I'm hoping doesn't, you know, go crazy over time. I hope it sits like that forever. As he falls off the barge, you do see a good look at the back of his head, and it does look accurate. It does look like there are some loose bits and some braided bits. I just worry about how this hair is sitting. Is it gonna fray? Is it gonna go wild over the years? I don't know. Only time will tell. As for the sculpted part where the braids come out of, they're painted well enough. They look like a weave or a binding. They're kind of a soft plastic. You know, there's a little bit of give to them. They're not extremely flexible, but they're okay. They're like a soft part of the mold. And just looking at it, I'm just trying to figure out if it is part of the mold or is it a separate part that's glued in. I'd be inclined to say that they're part of the full mold. They're not additional parts glued on. And if they are, it's seamless. It's done very well. They look seamless enough to me if they are. So no, I think they're parts of the mold. So, and you can see there as well that they kind of come out from quite a distance from the back of the head. Again, I'm not sure if they're supposed to be flush, but that's how they are on the mold. So that's pretty much it for Pagetti Rook. Not a whole lot to go through. Kind of a limited for accessories figure, limited for posing, typical Sideshow fashion, very expensive for what you get and what he is. But if you're an original trilogy fan, Return of the Jedi fan, and you want these side characters, I do recommend them. I think they look great. I'm going to be using them for my world building for my Jabba's palace. I know he belongs on the barge, but I don't think we'll be getting a 1/6 scale Bantha, skiff. So I'm going to be using them for my Jabba's palace world building. As for the body, as I always mention or try to mention for Sideshow figures, with the quality of the bodies, not the tightest joints. Now, not the weakest either. There's much worse figures from Sideshow out there. The raising of the arms, that holds up. It's tight enough. The elbow joints are tight enough, completely acceptable. And the legs, they're not too bad either. I mean, they're not hot toy standard, but they're not extremely tight. But they don't just fall down like some of their other figures. They do actually hold their position. Now, obviously, if I shake them, they're going to fall down. But, like I said, they're not ratcheted. But it is solid enough. I'm not outraged with it. I'm not upset with it. That Bib Fortuna body was absolutely terrible. And like I said, this body is a reuse. And I'm sure there's more than the figures that I just mentioned that have used this body. So it's not a bad body. So I'm pleased enough with it. It's not atrocious. So there we have it for the Sideshow Collectibles Pagetti Rook from their Scum and Villainy Collection Wave 2. I will be getting all of the Scum and Villainy figures. I am an OT fan. Not the most posable guy in the world in the sense that there's not too many accessories with him. I am going to add him to my Scum and Villainy collection playlist, and I'm going to add him to my Sideshow Collectibles playlist. So if you do want to see a full playlist of all the Scum and Villainy figures, check out that playlist. And if you want to see more Sideshow Collectibles figures, check out the Sideshow Collectibles playlist. I'm going to leave it at that. If you made it this far, thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.